are completing our session. In the first day, we talk and discuss about what is enlightenment, what is understanding, and what is liberation, and what is the relationship between the enlightenment and yoga. The second day, we discuss about what we have to do psychologically and what we should do physically. And the third day, we are discussing about who am I, the concept of I am. Now we are going to conclude everything and confirm whether we have understood properly or not. Is there any difficulties in understanding? What's the quality of understanding? What's the result of understanding? What is liberation? And that we have to verify our understanding and conclude. And before conclude the session, two preliminary topics. The one is thought and thinking. The another one is manolaya, manonasa. Okay. So, even though it is not closely related to the last topic, it is very well useful to the day-to-day life and to understand we separate the understanding properly. These two topics are also inevitable. The first one is the thought and thinking. We have to understand the difference between what is thought and thinking. We have many thoughts. For example, whenever we face a problem, the problem may be we do not like the problem, but anyhow we face the problem. And the problem is over. Somebody misbehaved with us and the matter has gone. But even after the ending of the situation, ending of the thing, we have the repeated thoughts about the thing. So that is thought. Even though we do not want the thought again and again, the thought comes again and again. So here, what we have to do? Actually, the thought is unconscious. It is not under our control. It comes on its own. But thinking is different from thought. That we have to understand. So thinking means if we ride upon the thought, we make the thought into thinking. So in thinking, we have some conscious participation. But in thought, we don't have any participation. Even without the intention, the thought comes repeatedly. So if we face problem, even after the ending of the problem itself, we may have the repeated thoughts about the problem. So thereby when we make the thought into thinking, we create more pain, we can create many strength to the thought. If we do not manually and consciously do not create any strength to the thought comes, will disappear very soon. You need not worry about the thought. But we may think, if we struggle with the thought, if you consciously struggle with the thought, that means you are making the thought into thinking. So if you don't mind the thought, let it come and go on its own way, the thought will slowly diminish the appearance, it will slowly go down and it will slowly disappear. But whenever we make the thought into thinking, when we consciously operate the thought and we, for example, somebody misbehaved and the thought may appear again and again and we manually enter into the thought, we have to do something against the person or we have to do something. When you think manually, when you think consciously like that, that is thinking. So if you do anything consciously in the name of thinking, we have to withdraw from thinking. So it is in our hand because we are consciously doing thinking. So what we have to do is to withdraw from our thinking. We cannot withdraw from the thought. Thought is unconscious. It happens. Only after the happening alone we know we have thought. So we need not worry about the thought. Some repeated thought may come, doesn't matter. So when it comes, naturally it will go. So we need not worry about thought. So what is in our hand is to stop thinking. When you stop thinking, the matter is over. Then even after you stop thinking, the thought may come repeatedly, but course of time it will disappear, and you need not worry about the disappearance of the thought itself. So that is the main understanding, what is thought and what is thinking. So in the same way, we have to understand what is manolaya and manonasa. The manolaya means having some attention with related to something or not. For example, we have some pleasurable experience or painful experience. We have the repeated thoughts or repeated thinking about the same thing, and we fix our mind in that situation, in that emotion. The fixing of our emotion, fixing of our mind process upon a single thing is known as manolaya. The fixing of ourselves in a thing, in a certain thing. So that is manolaya. The freedom from such kind of thing is manonasa. Manonasa mostly says that, so it says in the name of manonasa, that is known as no mind state, but it is not at all a no mind state. Even no mind state, it is a kind of manolaya. Our sleep is a kind of manolaya. All our experiences are in the form of manolaya. The samadhi state, all samadhi state is a kind of manolaya. It is not manonasa. Manonasa means what has come has to disappear. The disappearance of the thought, emotion, everything is the manonasa. That's the real meaning of manonasa. Manonasa means the disappearance of the happening. In each and every moment, our mind takes a shape of a emotion, takes the shape of a thought or thinking or anything. When the mind takes a shape, it is manolaya. When the mind is free from the shape, it is manonasa. So that is the main thing. So it is only one important aspect in the spiritual world. So here the manolaya is only some experience. So many people are interested to have some good experience. That means we are trying to have some manolaya. So actually in the spiritual world, it is the manonasa alone is considered to be the great. Actually the liberation is manonasa. The construction of our mind, the shaping of our mind, getting into a shape is manolaya. Through manolaya alone, we can have some good experience, bad experience. All experiences are related to manolaya. But manonasa is simply the shapeless state of our mind. So the disappearance of the shape is manonasa. That is our natural state. So each and every moment we may have some experience, we may have some emotion, thought, thinking, whatever it may be. But at the same time, the next moment we must be free from those things. So the freedom from those things is known as the manonasa state. That is closely related to the liberation, state of liberation. So in the spiritual literatures, are greatly says something, greatly appreciate the manonasa alone. They, for the beginners and for all our work, the manolaya is necessary. It is only for the beginners, and afterwards we have to end our process, end our thing, end our journey in the form of manonasa. So even our understanding, your enlightenment is related to manolaya. Manolaya means giving our attention, discussion, understanding, everything is through Manolaya. So we should not degrade Manolaya. Manolaya is also good. With the help of Manolaya alone, we can understand something. So understanding is possible only through Manolaya. But at the same time, the Manolaya, we have to be free from Manolaya itself. So after the understanding, we need not keep the understanding always with us. You may forget. Even forget is also, the forgetful is also necessary. So here, what we understand, it will be always recorded in our memory and it will come to your use. And you need not worry about you need not keep your understanding always. So if you understand properly, the matter is over. Afterwards, you may allow the natural process of liberation, the natural process of the Mano-Nasa. So here, in this way we have to understand the difference between what is Manolaya and Mano-Nasa. And now we are going to the real topic, the required topic, the confirmation. We have already understood that we have to understand the function of our mind, the experiences of our mind, and thereby we understand that is in the first instance, or for the beginners in the spiritual world or anything, we have to do something. And with the help of doing something, we can get something. And thereby we can have some idea about what is doing some practice and what is getting some result from that practice, that we got some knowledge about that. But even though you get many kind of experience, for the time being it will be all right. So in course of time, all the experience will have some other kind of, create some other kind of problem, or even though you may have some good experience or some great experience, in course of time you will feel all such kind of experience was inadequate, and you may feel something is left, you want something more and beyond the experience. So in that condition, then only you revise all the process, re-examine all your approach, re-examine all your effort, then only you come to a conclusion. Giving up all the process, giving up all the effort in the psychological world, then only you give total freedom to the psychological world. And by giving total freedom to the psychological world, thereby you have the actuality, and you know the quality of the natural flowing of our mind. The natural flowing of mind, just like a living river, is known as the liberation of the mind. Actually, the liberation of the mind is the highest state in the spiritual world or in the day-to-day life also. So when we got the liberation of mind, all problems are solved. Because whatever comes goes away along with the river, and you need not worry about anything. We have no place to sit and worry, and we need not have any place to carry over any worry or anything. So everything goes along the living river of our mind. So that is the final step, final stage in the spiritual world. But it is our natural state of our mind itself. So we need not create the liberation. The liberation is already there. The very nature of the mind is in the liberated state. What we are doing is that in the name of attaining something, in the name of some great experience, we are giving disturbance to the natural flow of our mind. So what we have to understand is that we have no duty within our mind to achieve anything, to retain anything. When we understand that we have no duty to retain anything or achieve anything, then there is non-doing of anything. So the non-doing of anything within the mind, thereby we are giving total freedom to the natural functioning of our mind. The natural functioning of our mind is liberation, for which we have no duty, because it is spontaneous, it is unconscious, it is natural, for which we have no work. So, but at the same time, all work is necessary with related to the external world. In the external world is concerned, we have to plan, we have to think, we can execute, effort is needed, work is needed to separate everything in the external world, in the worldly affairs or worldly duties. We have to do many things. And for that, we have to plan, we have to think. But in the psychological world, but the enlightenment, liberation is related to the psychological world. It is not to the physical world. Physical world is different. With related to the physical world, from the birth to the death, we are an ordinary human being. We cannot be more than an ordinary human being. Everybody is an ordinary human with related to the external world, and we have to work one among the other persons, one among the ordinary persons. But psychologically, we are different. When we understand, when we liberated, our quality of existence, our quality of behavior, quality of everything within ourselves undergoes a change, and we are entering into the different world. So psychologically alone, the enlightenment liberation is having some meaning. So with the external world is concerned, we have to think, we have to plan, we have to execute the right thing, we should not do the wrong thing. So physical world is such a way. But in the psychological world alone, we have to, the understanding has meaning, and the non-doing is also having some meaning. Doing without any effort, being without any effort has some meaning. But in the external world, being without any effort, being without any doing is meaningless. But in the external world, we have to do something. Without doing anything, we cannot get anything, we cannot have a good society, good circumstances. We have to change the unnecessary circumstances, unnecessary world. We have to modify everything, we have to establish a good society. But in the psychological world, there is no good or bad. Everything is natural. We have to be natural, we have no duty, we have no effort. When we leave the mind as it is, it clears itself. Our mind becomes a living river. The living river clears itself. No dirt will be there, no dust, no nothing will be there. No, everything will be in the flowing state. So here, our psychological structure must be alone in the living, just like a living river, just like in the flowing state. So all our enlightenment, liberation is purely related to our mind. So once we are liberated, the matter is over with related to the psychological world and related to the spiritual world. But again, we can end the process, end the effort in the psychological world, in the spiritual world, because everything is over. The spiritual world is also complete. You need not worry about the spiritual world, you need not worry about the spiritual practice. See, everything is okay. So, but the physical world, the external world remains. We can do the necessary things, but that is different. But in the psychological world is concerned, everything is okay, everything is over. So most of the people, as in the case of many masters, many saints, everybody got the same thing in their own way. So if I inquire and analyze the enlightenment process of Ramana Maharishi, what happened to him? When he was a boy, aged around 16 years, he don't have any practice, any spiritual practice. He is just like a small boy. Once he had a fear of death at his age of 16, he got the fear of death. He do not know what to do with the fear of death. The circumstances may be there, For example, in the case of Ramana, during his enlightenment, just 1 or 2 years before, his father died. He has no father. He had only mother, and his mother was also not living along with him. And Ramana lived in a family, in a related family, in a relative family. Some transaction may be good or bad because if he live along with his father and mother, he may be protected well. But in a unsuitable condition, he may have the hair living. So in that condition alone, he may accept even death itself. So some worry may be there, some problem may be there. So in that condition, he has the fear of death. So he simply accepts the fear of death. Let the death may come. He accepts the death. So when he accepts the fear of death, what happened is that he is not doing anything psychologically against the emotions, against the fear. So when he did not do anything against the functioning of his own mind, his mind functions freely on its own. So that is the change happened to Ramana. So some way or other, he found out the natural functioning of your mind. So this happened in all the saints, all the reputed masters. There are many masters, but I don't know all the histories of every masters. I have only limited knowledge about the masters. In the case of J. Krishnamurti, you may all know, he was expected to be the world teacher, and he and his brother was brought for special preparation by Theosophical Society. They gave many kind of practices, and Krishnamurti himself practiced many things through yoga. He got samadhi state and transcendental state. He got some trance. He can go in the astral body to some other places from his physical body. But even though he got many capacity, he did not got enlightenment. He did not got liberation. If he got the liberation alone, then he can have the right to deliver what is liberation, what is enlightenment. So they are all waiting for his liberation and enlightenment. But at the time of the thing, his brother got some disease and illness, and he was bedridden. And Krishnamurti was attending him nursing him on his side. During that time, they had to come to India from England for a ceremony at Chennai. And they all started journey in a ship. But Krishnamurti denied that I don't come, I have to attend my brother, he is seriously ill, I have to attend. And they have a custom, the Theosophical Society have a custom to get some prophecy from some godly powers. So they seek the help of the godly powers. And the godly powers foretell that nothing will happen to the brother of Krishnamurti, and you can take Krishnamurti along with yourself to the journey, and you need not worry about his brother. Everything will be all right. In the future, he is a primary disciple to Krishnamurti, and nothing will be happen wrongly. And on the assurance of the foretelling of the godly powers, they took Krishnamurti along their journey. When the ship was on the middle of the journey, they got the telegram that his brother was very seriously ill, because very serious. They do not know. You have to follow the foretelling of the godly power or the telegram. They do not decide. They cannot come to a conclusion. But at that time, the second telegram arrived. His brother died. So Krishnamurti completely collapsed. Even the godly powers himself denied. The godly powers itself told the lie. So he was simply collapsed. He locked himself in a room with a deep sorrow about the demise of his brother. He has the capacity to sit in samadhi state. If he go to the samadhi state, nothing will be there. He can be in a peaceful state without any worry of anything. But he was not trying to go into the samadhi state. He simply accept the sorrow of his, the sorrowful mind. When he totally accepts the happening of his mind, the mind begins to function on its own. So the natural functioning of the mind, some way or other he find out the quality of the functioning of his own mind in a natural way. And then afterwards he declared himself, I have found out what I have to find out. So all his practice, he got many practice, many experiences, but it is helpless. It creates him, it shapes him to the beginning. In the beginning, all his practices are good to shape him. But the final thing is that some way or other, we have to leave the mind as it is. The leaving of the mind is the liberation of ourselves, the liberation of the mind. The liberation is related to the mind. It does not relate to the Atma or anything. It is meaningless, but it is purely related to our mind. The mind alone has to have the liberation, but the natural state of the mind is in the liberated state. We need not create liberation. Only thing what we are doing is that we are disturbing the liberated state by thinking that we have to attain something, we have to retain something. We are unnecessarily creating some nuisance to the natural state of our liberation. So actually, if you do not do psychologically anything, but we have all right to do something in the external world, but we have no right to do something, do anything in the psychological world. So psychologically, our mind must be natural. In the very natural state of our mind, everything will be all right. So you can confirm yourself on the very natural functioning of our mind. When you realize, when you perceive, when you feel, when you taste the natural function of our mind, you can understand that so everything is okay. In that liberated state, nothing will stay. Some good thing may come, some bad thing may come, doesn't matter. As just like a reflection, when we face some adverse situation, some adverse emotion may come. If you are placed in a good situation, good emotion may come. So what all come will go away in the natural flowing of our mind. So that is the final state. That is not only final state, that is the natural state of our mind. So when we understand, when you taste and the quality of the natural state of mind, taste the quality of the liberated state of mind, the matter is over. So when we understand like this, we have to come to a conclusion. So if you doubt our understanding, it may not be the state like this. If anybody says, no, it is not totally liberation is the highest state, somebody may say like that. And when they say like that, it may also create a doubt within ourselves. So we have to decide for ourselves and conclude, and this is the final and nothing more than this, and the matter is over. For that we have to come to this conclusion. Otherwise we will be carried away by unnecessary thought and unnecessary doubt. So as the getting the liberation, the understanding liberation is important, the confirmation is also important. We have to, only because of the confirmation alone, we can conclude the everything. So after the conclusion alone, we can close the file. Otherwise, we will always keep the file open. We have to close and open. It is endless. But if you understand, once for all, we can close the file, and the matter is over. Then everything will be natural. But psychologically, you are in the liberated state. But physically, we are an ordinary human being. We cannot claim, I am enlightened, I am liberated. We cannot claim a post like this. In the external world is concerned, we all are ordinary people, ordinary human being. But psychologically, we are the highest, we are the supreme. So in the psychological world is concerned, everything must be natural, nothing is superior, nothing is inferior, everything is okay, everything is natural. For that we have to come to the conclusion. But I have read something about the Aravinda. Aravinda also, you might have Aravinda Maharishi of Pondicherry. You may also know, some of you may know about his name. In his case also happened like this. He also practiced many yoga, many practices, and got many experiences, and he fed up with many experiences, and he bored with these experiences, and he put down all his experiences and did nothing for 1 year. He did not do anything because previously he did many practices of yoga, got many experiences, but he got fed up and bored with these experiences, and one day he put down every practices and do nothing, and he keep himself without any practice for 1 year. Then after the end of 1 year, he got some different kind of expression in his mind and behavior or anything. He got some different kind of experience. He did not do anything. Some different kind of experience happened to him. You do not know what happened to him. But at that period, he got a master for him. He consulted his master. Such and such things has happened to me, but I have not did anything specially for that experience. But it happened like this. Why it happened like this? Whether you have blessed me with such kind of as a blessings, whether you have blessed me with some kind of experiences. And the master inquired the state of the nature of his experiences and told him, even myself has not got your state. You have got a different kind of state. You have got the highest state. Even myself has not got the state. Then how can I bless you with such kind of state? So you somewhere or other you got the state. But the Aurobindo conclude, so the God himself has given the state. Actually, when we do not try anything for ourselves, the mind functions naturally on its own. When it functions naturally on its own, the same thing will happen to each and everybody. Aurobindo is not a special case. It is a natural case. It is a natural circumstances, natural happening. In the case of Buddha also tried in the same way. He has also did many kind of practices, many kind of yoga, and all practices, all yoga created many feelings, many experiences, marvelous experiences, and he enjoyed the experiences, but he did not got the enlightenment and liberation. So he worked for that. And he repeatedly did the same thing, but without any progress, he got the experiences, but he is not satisfied with these experiences. But when he, as in the case of Aravinda or anything, he put down all his experiences and sit under a tree doing nothing. Because he tried, he knocked the door. Whatever the door he knocked, but no door will open. But then he come to a conclusion, we cannot do anything. So in the desperate condition of himself, the natural thing happened to him. Because he also said that I have got the thing what I have tried to attain, but it has happened to me without my effort. I find out it is our natural state. This is not my state. Everybody is in the state. Whoever find out the state will be for all. And it is not a state for particularly especially for me. It is the state for all. And whoever understands the state, they can own the state. They can have the state. They may be in the state. But it is not at all a state. If you name it as a state, it is not at all a state. It is a living state. Moment by moment it is new. Each and every moment we may have some emotion, feeling or anything, but everything is in the flow. Everything is just like a stream. So the natural function of our mind is just like as a living river. So it is always within us. Whenever we try something to retain something, get something, we are disturbing the natural flow of our mind. Otherwise the mind is always in the flow. The mind cannot say, even though you do not do anything on its own, on our own, the mind will not stop. The mind will function. When we stop our functioning, the mind will function on its own. The functioning on its own is known as the liberated mind. That is the natural state of our mind, for which we have to understand. And after the liberation also, because of my talk and conversation along with me, and thousands of people got the same thing. They got the understanding. But at the same time, they may have some doubt. So after the understanding also, they may feel, so when we face the situation in the external world, it may have some reflection upon the mind. Sometimes they may got some problem in the psychological world. Sometimes they may have some aversion to the situation. So they may question me, even when after the understanding, after the liberation, how does it possible such kind of emotion has to come within me? But here, whatever comes here, that is the nature of mind. Unless you got some reaction to the situation, we cannot execute, we cannot face the situation. For example, when you face a problem in your business, naturally you will have some psychological tension. Then only you can attempt the problem of your activities. Otherwise, you leave the activities, leave the business will collapse. So the tension, anger, fear, everything comes for the help to deal with the situation. But in itself, nothing, you need not worry about anything. Whatever comes will go away naturally. You need not do anything to set you right psychologically. But we have to do something to set everything right in the physical world. So even after the understanding, even after the liberation, naturally we may have some reaction when we face the situation of the world. So that is natural. But we need not worry about, we need not degrade yourself that as if even after enlightenment, even after liberation, if some response to the situation came, we need not underestimate that I have not liberated, I have not understood. So that is not the case. But even after understanding, even after liberation, such kind of emotion will be there. But it is momentary. You need not worry about that. Whatever comes will go away in the next moment. Everything will be like a passing cloud or moving water. So we have to confirm ourselves that the matter is over. Then only we can easily forget the situation, forget the file. We can close the file of the work. And then the physical world alone is left. The physical world will not close. That is always continuing, and we have to attend. We have to do the necessary things. But in the psychological world is concerned, in the spiritual world is concerned, everything is over. Everything is natural. So in natural state, everything is okay. But we have to come to a conclusion. Our mind is in the natural state. Everything is in the natural state. We have nothing to do anything in the psychological world. So in the legal studies, we have got a legal maxim. In the legal maxim, but with related to this, the king in the olden days, in each country, some king will be there. But no, there cannot be any law to punish a king. So they have a legal maxim like this: the king can do no wrong. So when the king did not do any wrong, how can we punish a king? So they they frame a legal maxim, king can do no wrong. He cannot do it wrong. So in this way, in psychological world, every one of us is the king. We cannot do any wrong. So everything is right, nothing is wrong. Whatever we are doing, whatever we are having in the psychological world, everything is good. Nothing is punishable, nothing is wrong. So whatever comes will go in the next moment. So we need not worry about that, we need not correct anything. Whenever we are trying to correct anything, then only we create a wrong. Then only we are creating a mistake. So actually everything is correct, everything is good. There is no work within ourselves. But in the physical world is concerned, right and wrong is there. We have to do the right thing, we have to avoid the wrong thing. But in the psychological world is concerned, everybody is the king. Everybody is the highest one. And we cannot be punished by the rules and regulations of ourselves. So when everything is good, everything is correct, there is no work is needed. So when we when we establish and when we claim this alone is good, this is bad, then only our effort, our work starts within ourselves. So we have to conclude ourselves without any work psychologically. We have to keep ourselves in a natural state. So the mind is always in the natural state. We have to leave it as it is. That is the thing for which our understanding helps. We have to understand like this. By way of this understanding, we have to conclude, we have to come to the conclusion, and the matter is over. In that respect,
the application for the confirmation.
The confirmation or anything?
You started to talk about Mano Nasa, and reading some of the translations of Ramana Maharshi, it's defined, I think, if I got it, as the death of the mind, like death of the mind. But can you just explain the difference in your definition?
Actually, many people say that as a no mind state. Actually, it is not at all a no mind state. What has come in the mind has to go away. So that is the real manonasa. Actually, the real meaning is manolaya nasa. There should not be any manolaya. The manolaya must go away. So that is the real meaning. And we need not, actually if there is no mind, the no mind state is a kind of manolaya. Even the samadhi state, when we are having in the samadhi state is a no mind state. Samadhi state is a kind of manolaya state. Our deep sleep is a manolaya state. Everything is possible, all experience, all happenings is possible only because of manolaya. But manonasa is not at all a state. The dissolution of laya, the ending of manolaya is manonasa. Nothing more than that, very more than that.
Manolaya is absorption and so on.
Absorption or fixing ourselves in a state, keeping ourselves in a state is manolaya. But keeping any state and freedom from the state is manonasa. Keeping ourselves without any state means because there is a natural state of our mind. Each and every moment it gets freedom it gets free itself from the state. But we know everything, we understand everything only when the mind takes a shape. By getting a shape of the mind alone, we can get something, we can understand something. So understanding is possible, even enlightenment is also possible only with the help of manolaya. And it is also good, but at the same time it has to go. But the liberation is not manolaya. Liberation is freedom from manolaya. But even enlightenment is also a kind of manolaya. Understanding is manolaya. With the help of the manolaya, you can come to the conclusion, you have to come to the understanding. Afterwards, the understanding will work. You need not keep the understanding always within one hand and do the other thing in the other hand. When we understand, the matter is over.
So in order to have the manolaya to get the understanding, is it, you mentioned like Krishnamurti was doing this and that and it was shaping him. It was alright, but then, so is it a certain development or maturity necessary in order to be able to understand?
So basically some kind of maturity is necessary, but 1 or 2 years is enough. But not more than 2 years is waste of time. 1 or 2 years, 1 or 2 years are enough. But at the same time, if somebody in acute problem, some mental distress, they need not go for any medical, psychological or this spiritual practice. Even their pressure of mind, even their problem of the mind itself enough. Because they want some release from the mind. So when they want to get some release from the burden of their mind, they can understand. So before some understanding, we have some pressure. We have to go away from that. So when the spiritual practices are made necessary to upgrade yourself to status, thereby you have some good experience, and afterwards you have to come to the conclusion the experience is having some limit. So after that you have to wind up the experiences itself. So that is a gradual process. But if you have some psychological problem, then you need not go for any spiritual practice. Even without practice, you can have the same understanding. But in case of Ramana Maharishi here did not do any practices. Without any practices, but he has some psychological problem. The psychological problem, he has fear of death. The fear of death makes him liberate. Because he accepts his mind as it is. When he accepts his mind as it is, the mind functions on its own. Otherwise, we put our hand to correct the mind, correct the function of the mind. So we have to come to the conclusion that we have no business in the area of mind, in the field of mind.
You mentioned about Krishnamurti, how this practices, he got various capacities.
Yeah.
So after the liberation that you're describing, could it still be a natural part of the flow that some development of capacities could happen in the natural flow?
Actually, it is useless. It's related to the liberation, it is useless. So even though they have got many capacity, many experiences, they are searching for liberation, searching for enlightenment. They did not do anything, they cannot do anything, they cannot understand what is enlightenment and what is liberation. Without knowing about that, they expect liberation, they expect enlightenment, but they don't know except doing some Kriya Yoga. They have the capacity to do Kriya Yoga alone. All those Kriya Yoga create some energy field, create some power, some experience. To that extent alone they can help. But no help is necessary for liberation. For that you have to understand.
Right, but just as in the physical world, we might learn a skill, like in our job. Even after liberation, we might improve our skill. So in the same way, there might be subtle aspects, not for liberation, but just for.
So in the external world is concerned, for you have to do permanently till the date of our death. We have to do something. But psychologically, we do not correct ourselves. We do not shape ourselves. We do not shape our mind. But we can have the technique of driving a car, operating a computer, everything it is necessary it is for the external world.
But this body is also part of the physical.
Part of the body also you may do some skill. But for liberation, we have to understand nothing is needed. It is natural. It is already there. When it is already there, what else we have to do? Only thing what is needed is that we should not do anything against the natural functioning of the mind. But if the external world is concerned, it is not natural. It is artificial. Everything is created by man. Everything is created by ourselves. We have to change. We have to change the good thing, bad thing, everything. We have to separate everything in a good way.
Bhagavat, you explained the difference between thought and thinking. And my question now is, how can I prevent thought from turning into thinking? Is there a way to to stop the thinking?
So you have to understand what is thinking and what is thought. That means you have to give freedom to the thought. You need, for example, you have the fear or anger or sorrow, naturally you want to be free from that. When we want to free from that, naturally we convert the thought into thinking. So whenever you understand you have already made the thought into thinking, the very understanding is enough. So the very moment you can stop thinking. So because thinking is manual, it is conscious. So, but thought is unconscious. It is not under your hand. So whenever you know, whenever you recognize, you have converted the thought into thinking, the very understanding will stop thinking. It is enough.
In my experiences, I have sometimes a feeling that even the thinking just happens. Like I don't have any control.
So when you don't have any control, that means it is thought, it is not thinking. If you are consciously doing anything, that alone is thinking. If it happens unconsciously, it is thought, it is not thinking. So what all comes unconsciously is known as thought. Everything happens within you, not outside of you. Everything comes within your mind. But whatever comes on its own is known as thought. But if you, even though you do something upon the thought, riding upon the thought, I have to shape the thought, this must be like that, this must not be like that. If you are consciously doing anything, that is thinking. But don't do anything consciously. Let it be unconsciously. If it is unconscious, it is known as thought. It cannot be taken as thinking.
What about memory? What is memory?
Memory is static. It is whenever all memory creates some thought. We know only the thought. We cannot feel the memory. Memory is a static subject. Only because of the thought alone, the thought is the product, is the property and it is produced from the memory. But only the expression of the memory. We know only the expression. We cannot the memory. We cannot know the memory. There are many bundle of memories within ourselves. We cannot know. Whenever the thought, we know the memory only with the help of thought alone. But the thought is the product of memory. We know only the thought.
Talk about Krishnamurti accepting the deep sorrow for the death of his brother. Does that mean after that he never experienced sorrow anymore for the death of his brother?
So here, experiencing sorrow is a different thing. So here, he accepting the natural, he find out the natural functioning of our mind. Previously, he did not know anything. He wanted to shape his mind. He tried to shape his mind. The mind has to function this way or that way. Now he find out the natural functioning of our mind. In the natural functioning of our mind, he find out some different kind of existence, some different kind of happening. So he find out, so for this alone I have experienced for a lot of time, through all those practices alone, really I expect this kind of experience, this kind of happening. But what he expected, that has happened at that time. So the happening is nothing more than that, the natural functioning of our mind. Here he is not doing anything to shape the mind. This must function without any sorrow, with sorrow. He has no command, he has no direction. So without any direction it functions in a natural way. So but he find out, so some different kind of functioning in our mind which functions in a natural way. So he find out the functioning of his natural mind.
That doesn't necessarily mean sorrow has disappeared forever.
But when you are living in the natural state of your mind, everything will reflect. All emotions are the reflection. The reflection will be going very easily. But if you do not have any reflection, all reflection have some vicious circle within you and create some eddy and some problem, unnecessarily struggling within yourself. And that will happen. That is the ordinary course of mind. That is the normal struggling mind. That everybody is in a normal way. Everybody is having this kind of struggling mind. So once we find the quality of the liberated mind, so your life will be different. So what is all responsibility there, but the response will be in a different function, in a different structure. Comes, it will go.
But the external world will not follow the internal world.
So with the help of the internal world alone, we can do something. We have to think, we have to plan. Everything happens within ourselves, within our mind. But it may be related to the external world. But our thinking, our planning should not relate it to ourselves, related to the mind itself. If we relate it to if we relate our thinking and planning related to ourselves means we have to keep ourselves without any problem, we have to keep ourselves with some good emotions, then only we are trying something to keep ourselves in a good state. But we may plan to keep the situation in a good state. That we have to plan. But all planning is within ourselves, within our mind. But the mind has to function with related to the external things. The mind should not function against itself. That is the main thing.
I have to explain this question. Initially, J. Krishnamurti had sorrow, great sorrow due to his death of his brother. And then he starts controlling his mind, and then his mind was in natural flow. But later, like him, there are so many enlightened masters. Will everybody get all the mundane human feelings such as sorrow, happiness, jealousy, anger? Will all the enlightened masters also, until they are living, will they get these emotions based on the external situations?
So, on one fine day, they got some change in the natural course of their mind. When the change happens, they find something, some different kind of functioning of their mind. After find out the different kind of functioning of their mind, they enter into a different state of life. So afterwards, as in the previous case also, some problem may come, but they will face the problem in a different way. Previously, they will struggle with the problem. Now they will not struggle with the problem. Problem will be there, but they will not struggle with the problem. The liberated mind will face the problem. Previously, they will face the problem within a struggling mind. Now they are facing the problem with the liberated mind.
But you said from the thought, thinking will come, and from thinking, emotions will come. Is this same with them? So will they also have all the emotions which we all have?
So, thought and thinking we need not associate. But whenever we face a situation, if the situation is good, some good reaction we will have. If some bad reaction, bad situation, some bad reaction we will have. But we will not struggle with those emotions. If we should not try to retain some good emotion, we will not try to remove the bad emotion. So they will not apply thinking to separate themselves. They may use the thinking to separate the situation. They will not think to separate themselves within their mind. So they will not apply the thinking. They will have the thought, but they won't have any thinking to separate themselves within the mind. But they will use the thinking to separate the situation.
Right. But specifically my question is, will they also get the emotions, like bodily chemical reactions, which we all get? Will they also get the similar bodily chemical reaction first time they see the situation? Will they get?
So they may get, but we may think enlightened persons, liberated persons will not have any emotion. We cannot think like that. But some people with some yogi practices, they may lock themselves with certain experiences. But if you lock yourself with some certain special experiences, if for example if you go to the samadhi state, what kind of experience you will have when you face an adverse situation? You will not have any experience. But in the same way, if you have some bliss consciousness by creating some meditation or anything, you will not be affected by the situation. But that is not good. That is thereby you locked yourself in a prison, and it is not a liberated state. It may look it is the highest state, but it is not the highest state. But whenever the state extends for more than a limited period, it will destroy even the health of the body itself. We cannot survive. So, moreover, it may have created some damage in the mind itself. So, it is not a good state. For the time being, it may look good state, but it is not at all a good state. But the real state, real good state is the liberated state of our mind. Where any expression may be some good expression you may have, some bad expression you may have, according to the situation. But everything is will be in the flowing state. In the other day also we use the analogy. For example, you are having a table like this, and the weight of the table is 50 kilograms. And if you want to move the table, you have to use more weight beyond 50. Then only you can push away the table. If you push away the table, even though you are going, it will make a scratch in the floor itself. But at the same time, if you put some wheel to the table, you can very easily move the table through your finger itself. You need not apply more weight. So it is very easy. So in this way, when everything is in the flowing state, it will not have any pressure. It will not create any scratch in yourself. It will not create any mark in your mind. Everything flows very easily. So when everything is moving, when the river is moving, whatever you put, everything will be washed away. But it is in the static water, whatever you put, everything will be in the water and everything will be destroyed, the quality of the water itself. So that is the natural. But everything will, even the enlightened person, liberated person will have the reaction. But the reaction will be in the flowing state. So it will have a different quality.
Just one last question.
Okay.
To finish this thought. So just to extend this thought, so if we have seen lots of stray dogs in the city, so if I'm walking, if a dog comes chasing towards me, either we fight or fly, try to run away. But I see a fear arising in me when I see the dog barking at me, and I also might see the adrenaline rush. I feel it. So till this time, will it be the same for all enlightened masters? J. Krishnamurti goes for a walk, or Ramana Maharshi goes for a walk, the dog chases them, will they also have all these emotional bodily reactions?
So in some way or other they have to react to the situation. To react the situation, you must have some emotion, otherwise you cannot react. For example, when you saw a snake, if you don't have any fear, you will tread upon the snake, it will bite upon you. So if you have the fear alone, you will move away from the snake, but that does not matter. The fear will destroy you. The fear will not destroy. The fear will manage the situation. To manage the situation, you can make use of the emotion. But we need not worry about the emotion. But we will have the emotional response. Then only we can do something.
Thank you.
It's in the same room. So I've got a question. So somebody whose mind is liberated will still have occasionally some emotions, like if somebody is liberated at the level of is liberated, but their mother died, they will have some sorrow, but because they do nothing with it, it will flow and pass. And so the question is, since somebody with a liberated mind has no shield with bliss consciousness, of no resistance to experiment whatever the world offers or whatever happens in their mind, how is it possible that all the suffering of the world, because we are living in a suffering world, so how is it possible that there won't be, that all the suffering of the world should be, and how come they don't feel all the time the suffering of the world since there is no shield whatsoever?
So, I have this liberated people. You are saying they don't have any sort of shield of bliss consciousness, like they're open, they're in the flow. If they are in the flow and every emotions, they react. But then in the world, there's so much suffering. Every day people are dying, people are sad, and they lose, and so many people are unhappy and suffering. Then how will these liberated people react to the suffering?
No, not how they react. how come they're not all the time feeling the emotion, the suffering of the world? Since there is no more shield, no more doing anything with the emotion or the thoughts or the reaction, there is no more reaction. So it seems to me there is always a kind of membrane or field which keeps us separated from the suffering of the world. Even though we have compassion, we need to, well, this is my feeling. So how come a liberated person would
So you say we must have some compassion to the world. You say you expect some compassion to make like the world without suffering?
No. How come somebody with a liberated mind is not all the time feeling the suffering of the mind? Well, how come?
Their own suffering or others' suffering?
Others suffering.
Others suffering.
Oh, okay. So celibate people see everywhere they're suffering, and they are not affected by the suffering. Sorry, I'm being.
Why?
So there are so many people suffering, but the liberated person doesn't have any shield. So their emotions may affect them if we don't have any shield. Right? That is what you are asking.
Yeah.
They are witnessing the scene, not involved. Only they are
That's what-
witnessing the scene.
As you said, the liberated person doesn't have any shield. In that case, it will affect other people's sorrow to him.
So naturally, if anybody is
Not affected.
suffered, naturally it will affect. That is the natural course.
Yes.
When we do not, when I am in the bliss consciousness, it may not affect me. But I am an ordinary person with related to the other person, naturally your suffering, the other people's suffering will affect me. But with the help of, but here it is an inducement to do something to remove the suffering, to safeguard the other people from suffering. But if the possible thing we can do. But if it is, even myself is unable to separate the thing, what we have to do? But at the same time, whatever comes will go away naturally. But it will have create some inducement to do something to the suffering people. But if we have some power, if we have some possibilities to separate them, we can do something. But if we do not if we do not have anything, I cannot do it immediately. But at the same time, the natural inducement will be there.
Natural what?
Natural inducement. Inducement in the form of psychological suffering. Suffering will be there. Psychological sorrow will be there. On seeing the sorrow of other people, we may have some sorrow.
But suffering is all over the place. So one would feel sorrow all the time. No, you are not feeling sorrow all the time with all the suffering you know.
So when everybody, so many people are suffering, actually the liberated person will be always in suffering. Then how come he can be free from suffering?
So, whenever the suffering comes, it goes away. Nothing will be stable. There cannot be any permanent static emotion. Whatever comes, everything is in the flow. But then thereby we can, if it is possible to do something, it can activate our action. If there is nothing to be activated, whatever comes will go away naturally. I cannot retain some suffering within ourselves. Whatever comes will go away.
So it means if you cannot do anything on the physical level, you don't hold to it and then your attention goes somewhere else. The natural flow of your life takes you elsewhere.
What is the necessary thing we have to do? Even though psychologically we are free, what is the possible thing, what is the necessary thing, we have to think and do. That is different. We have to think the necessary thing.
I also have a question. You mentioned the Buddha and his awakening, and my question is, in the Western there is a school of Vipassana meditation, which is basically a training of the mind not to attach yourself and not to reject the bad things. And the question is, if it's pretended that it's kind of developed by the Buddha itself, and second is, what is your opinion about this kind of meditation? How much helpful?
How many Buddhas they have produced?
You understand, you also
trying.
Buddha.
Everybody is trying. Everybody is trying in their own way. But everything is good. They are preparing themselves. But one day they have to put down everything. They are creating. They are doing some, all practices is a creation. We are, by some practices we can create a state. But liberation is not a created state. It is a natural state. When we try to create something, it is against liberation. So, but anyway, we have to find out the thing, this is not correct. To that extent, you may create yourself, you can establish yourself, and on fine morning you have to find out everything is waste. Then only you will step on to the next level. Then you put you put everything in the natural state. Naturally, you need not do anything for the natural state. So all effort to attain the natural state is against the natural state. Well, the natural state already is there. You need not create it. You cannot bring it. It is already there. Only thing you should not disturb it.
The question came because now, if the Buddha got liberated and understood this, then it's not very logical that he developed this meditation. So it's probably just folklore.
We have to give some practices, then only they can gradually understand. So even Buddha himself got the state even before, without the meditation. But he also previously he had done many kind of meditations. So as a preparatory work, he advocated many meditations. That's not bad. That does not mean meditation is not at all bad, not at all good. Everything is good. In some way or some respect, meditation is good. Otherwise we cannot do anything. We have to do something. Afterwards we have to find out meditation is also not necessary. You have to write to that state.
Regarding this Vipassana as well as understanding, I had practiced Vipassana for a few years, left it after that. And while I didn't get any enlightenment, it brought me out of my depression and actually led me to Ramana Maharshi and other non-dual teachings. One of the concepts that got planted in my mind while I was in the Vipassana was that enlightenment happens when you experience nirvana, which is beyond senses, beyond time, beyond space. And and it is said this is a experience. This is something that cannot be described because it is beyond all the senses. And once the person comes back, like what happened with the Buddha, he had, and it's written in so many Buddhist scriptures. It's written about his experience. He sat under the tree and all those fears, everything came in, and finally he had that experience. I don't know whether he had or whatever, it's it was everything disappeared and he was in a state of nirvana. And as he came back, that experience induced the understanding that you have been talking about. So my question is that, is it possible to have the same understanding that you have without having any experience of nirvana?
So experience nirvana and liberation is same. There is no difference between nirvana and liberation. Both are same. Different word, different terminology, but the content is same. Content is one. Nirvana means no state, natural. Nirvana means natural. So the mind must be natural, without any state, without keeping anything. It must be natural. The natural state means nirvana. Liberation is also same. Enlightenment. Enlightenment is understanding, but the nirvana state, enlightenment, the liberation, awakening, everything is one. The natural functioning of our mind is the awakened state, nirvana state, liberated state, everything is one.
And this understanding, is it once it, the moment when it comes, a final understanding? So is it a totally stabilized, or does it comes and goes? For example, I would like to ask you, in your experience, is your experience all the time that there is listening, but there is no Bhagavat really listening to it? Or there is seeing, but there is no individual you, through whose filter the seeing is happening? Or in your case, is it a constant knowing that there is a seeing happening, there is a listening happening, but it is not happening through you? Is it a constant knowing, or is it like you still feel like, yes, I am, I as Bhagavad is listening or seeing or hearing? Or,
So, without knowing that what is the way out of the house, you can try to go away through this window. But once you understand you cannot go away from the window, you will not try to enter. The door is there. So, in this way, if you understand there is no way for the mind, there is no work for the mind to control yourself, to regulate itself, the matter is over. The understanding puts a full stop to the effort. You need not always keep the understanding within yourself. Once you understand the matter is over, you need not, as you find out you cannot go away through the window, the matter is over. You need not always have the understanding within your mind. I cannot go away from the window, I cannot go away from the, you need not always keep the thing within your hand. Once you understand, the matter is over. So here we have to find out, I cannot do anything psychologically, we have no work psychologically. If you understand, if you have that conclusive understanding like this, the matter is over. If you have any doubt, there may be some possibility to enter into the window, you may try again and again. But at the same time, it is impossible to enter through the window, then you will try, you will not try there. So the matter is over.
Is there any way to investigate into that I cannot do anything about it? Is there some way through which I can investigate and inquire into this?
So only through our mind alone, only through our intellect process alone, you have to inquire various aspects, various process, and you can verify. If I say something, you can verify with the help of your understanding, with the help of your knowledge and everything, and you can compare the statements of many masters. And if you select this is correct, you can approve and you can conclude. If there is some doubt, you can inquire yourself, you can take time, and then you can find out and you can come to a conclusion. When you come to a conclusion, the conclusion will activate, the conclusion will act, your understanding will act.
What stays between this acceptance and of our real mind, of our natural mind? Because it feels like there is some wall and resistance just to accept. It feels so attractive, but there is like also at the same time resistance.
So when we practice acceptance, it is again it is a work. Again it is a work against within ourselves. We need not accept anything. So if you understand all work is meaningless within ourselves, then we need not worry anything about acceptance or anything. Whether you accept or not, you may deny it, you may accept, doesn't matter. So we have no work on ourselves. Whatever comes in the natural way, let it be in the natural way. So we should not place ourselves in a responsibility to do something in the form of acceptance, in the form of rejection. There is no responsibility. If we take acceptance as a good thing, then we will take ourselves responsible to accept everything. That is not the case. We have to understand no work is there. And afterwards, even acceptance may be there, even rejection may be there. Let it be natural, let it be unconscious. There should not be any conscious work. That's the main thing.
How do I know what is natural? Like, what is natural?
So for something happens without your intention, without your emotion, without your conscious doing. For example, some thought comes without your work. Some emotion comes, but you may not be entertained. You may not plan. Even your plan, you may think this thought should not come to me. In spite of your decision, the thought may come. So you are not responsible for that. So whatever comes without your command, without your expectation, that is natural. All thoughts, all emotion, the mind functions on its own. You are not responsible for that.
We like very much to participate in
Yes.
We like too much to participate in mind. Why it's happened? We just ready here to participate all the time. We want it, we like it, we enjoy it, everything.
So here, if you enjoy means you are having some participation.
Yes.
Even enjoyment is also a participation. So even the enjoyment is whatever you are happy for here, everything must be happening. Even enjoyment happens, let it be happening. It is not your doing. Doing is different from happening. Happening is happen on its own. We have no conscious participation. So it is unconscious participation. Unconscious participation, you may be participate with that, but let it be unconscious participation. That is happening. But if you deliberately do something, then you are doing something on your own. So there should not be any actual and manual participation is related to the psychological world. External world is different. External world you have to deliberately do something, deliberately avoid something. But psychologically, it must be natural, without any conscious doing. Natural, it must be natural.
When Ramana Maharshi suggested this question, who am I? So, what is he really suggesting? Isn't he suggesting us to inquire into this nature of I, this individual sense?
Sometimes he use the thing as an inquiry and find out there is no I am. Then we can free from everything. Sometimes he use the process like this. Sometimes you use it as a yogic process. Thereby you focus your attention and you
like a mantra.
Keep on vibrating the eye consciousness. And in some way, in two ways, if you inquiry, in the process of inquiry, you can find out the real nature of your eye consciousness, and there is no I, it is only a momentary one. If you find out that thing, this may also you can find out. But the other thing is yogic process. Both way he approaches.
And this one puzzle I have that I've been struggling with is like, what is really suffering? Because the non-personal awareness is just aware of everything, but it doesn't participate in any of it. And if the I is not real, then what suffers? Like why still it hurts so much? And what is really suffering then?
So the natural response will be there. For example, whenever you saw some adverse situation, the natural response will be there. It will come and go. If you are putting something against the response, then only you make the thing as a suffering. Otherwise, it is a happening and appearance and disappearance of the thing. It will not be a suffering. It will be happening. We should not name it as a suffering. When you name it as a suffering, you must try to keep yourself without suffering. So we have to take it as a happening. Whatever may be in the form of suffering, but let it be in the form of happening. Whatever happens, let it go in the natural way. You have no work.
Like for example, right now, for past 15 minutes, I'm feeling fear for no reason. I don't know why, but I can see that there is fear coming in me for the last 15-20 minutes. So, is it like I should not be like should I not be as generally what I do is like when these kind of fear or something comes, like I start applying the non-dual teachings with who is really experiencing, and so instead of doing all this, should I be just suffer?
Here, the happiness of something is there, but if you want to do something, if you name it as a fear or anything, some personality gets importance. You take the role of somebody to handle with the fear. So actually, it is an important process. When we keep yourself as somebody and keep the fear as something before somebody, then you have some duality within yourself. So if you do not mind, let it be there. When you understand, let it be natural. When everything is natural, we have not created the fear. When the fear comes with some reason or other, you have not created. But when you take some responsibility to free from fear, let it be unconsciously, but don't consciously do it. If you do not do anything consciously, in course of time everything will be okay in the normal way. But whenever you consciously take a role to set you right, thereby you strengthen the thought, strengthen the emotions. So all our deliberate action creates a deliberate problem. Thereby we are creating some strength to the problem. Otherwise everything will be in the flowing state. Whatever comes will go away, that is the natural state. For example, even in case of fear, you may think it may continuously continuing for 20 minutes. Actually, each and every moment, new fear around can come. There cannot be any continuous fear. Static object may be permanent, but the emotion is not permanent. Each and every moment, new emotion can come. There cannot be any continuation of old movement. So somewhere or other, you have the mind to renew the same thing. Only the renewal of thing is happening. So if you do not do anything, it will go away naturally. But whenever you assume some responsibility to get away from the fear, thereby it gets strengthened. So even though it doesn't matter, even though you may have the responsibility, but let it be unconsciously. Don't take any conscious responsibility within the psychological body. The unconscious responsibility doesn't matter, but don't do it consciously.
If something happens, like say someone says something to me and I feel insulted, then I might feel some anger or something. But if actually that's just my interpretation, and in reality they meant something different. So I can just watch my reaction and in time it will pass, or I can inquire within myself or maybe with the person, or what did you mean actually?
So
And maybe in discovering the truth, that misperception will dissolve and immediately the emotion can be released.
So you need not worry about you need not expect the disappearance of the emotion. So at the same time, you may not like the emotion. When you are insulted, you have the feeling of insult. You may not like the feeling of insult. Then naturally you may like to free from the emotion. But let it be unconscious. But don't do it consciously. If you don't do it a stand that I must be free from, I must keep myself without any emotion, with some peace of mind, I should leave away the emotion. If you deliberately do something, then thereby you are giving strength to the emotion. You let it be natural. When everything is natural, everything will be all right in course of time. Anyhow, it may take some time.
But anyway, if we're already doing unconsciously, taking responsibility.
Let it be. You may, but at the same time, you have to understand. You have to understand there is no work within yourself. And even after understanding, you may have the unconscious reaction within yourself like that. Whenever we have fear or anger, you may have the intention to be free from anger and fear. Let it be unconscious. But because we have understanding, proper understanding that we have no work within ourselves, and the understanding will come to the help. Even though you unconsciously take the responsibility to clear yourself, your understanding will come to the help whenever you assume some responsibility. The moment the understanding comes, then you will not be consciously struggling to get away from the fear or anger.
But in a practical life, let's say I have a partner, a wife or girlfriend, then some misunderstanding happened. But if we communicate in a way that could also be flow, that could be the natural response to communicate over what you meant, that could be natural also.
So in the external world is concerned, all external relationships are external value. For that, you have to behave in a proper way. You have to saturate yourself in a proper way. For that, what you have to do, that you have to understand. If you have a good relationship or bad relationship, you have to think. If you think good relationship alone you have to maintain, then good response will come. Even though some previous bad response may be there, but in spite of that, what decision you make, according to the decision, you will have the new kind of response from you.
Could you repeat that last part of that?
So, the other day also I have explained some instances. Some dog is there. The dog is frightened with when it was surrounded by many dogs, it is frightened. If we express the fear, it has to run. When it is run out of fear, all the other dogs will sprang upon the dog and it will bite on very worstly. But at the same time, it has to escape from the situation. It is not wise to express the fear. So what you have to do, then only some natural response will be there. The natural response will not be fear. Some other response. So for example, if your wife misbehaves with you, naturally you may have some anger upon your wife. But at the same time, you may think anger is not good. Instead of anger, some other thing you have to behave like this, because you have to make use of the thing or anything, then some new kind of emotion we will have. So for that you have to decide what you have to think, what you have to take. So in the case of the other example also, when your boy, your son has broken down a glass, and immediately you got anger and you expressed your anger upon your son by beating him. But at the same time, some relative boy did the same thing and broken down the glass. Immediately you got the anger. But you controlled that you need not use your anger. You have no responsibility to express the anger upon the relative child. The moment it is not quite correct to use the anger, then the necessary action other than the emotion will come. So you will console the other person, he will be in afraid condition, you will try to console him. But then with your own son, you take the anger in your hand and you express the anger upon your son. But in the relative child, you are not taking the anger in your hand. Instead of that, some different kind of emotion comes and you console the boy. So what you control, what you think, so necessary emotion will come unconsciously.
We all know that if wife insults you, you have to accept it. You cannot fight back. Jokingly. You had a question.
It is, I think, for everyone challenging to deeply accept there is nothing to do in the internal world, specifically for the Western mind, because we are trained from the beginning always to do something, to achieve something. And this is like in the way of this free flow, let it be as it is. Because there is a feeling I need to control the situation. This I is quite strong, the feeling of I, of belief in I thought, which looks like in the way of it. For this deeper understanding, and not only deeper understanding, total understanding to happen, also in order to happen. This is just what I want to share, this what is in the way I'm looking for myself. And it looks like for me in the way. It's always this permanent tension and doing which we are for so long trained to do.
So, previously the next house is yours, and you have to safeguard who can enter the house, who should not enter the house. You are the owner of the house. And one day he sold the house to somebody else. And do you have any responsibility who have to enter, who should not enter? There is nothing to do. But at the same time, this house is yours. You can have the power to safeguard anything. In this way, the external world is yours. You can make use of the external world. You lost the psychological world. You are not the owner of the psychological world. You think, you assume something that you are the owner of the psychological world. You are not the owner.
Yeah.
You are the neighbor of the
And this is this. I assume that I'm owner of psychological world because only wrongly I think because I have so much to do in external world, same much I have to do in internal world. That is my subconscious belief. This is the problem.
That you have to understand. If you understand
Yeah.
and conclude this is correct, naturally the conclusion will help. The understanding will help. You need not try for that. You may work for that. The very understanding will light.
Yeah. Yes,
You have to demarcate external and internal. Then everything will be okay. Physical and psychological. Psychologically, no responsibility. Physically, you have to take all the responsibility. Actually, when you understand there is no work in the psychological world, there is not at all a psychological world. It is other world. You are not your world. So, the external world is alone our world. It is not our psychological world. Is not our world. It is a natural world. It is a world of God. It is a world of God.
What do you mean psychological? You mean feelings only, emotions or feelings?
Yeah.
Or you
Emotion.
think also thoughts there?
No, see, all emotions, all feelings, all thoughts, everything is psychological. But in itself, it is natural. But all the things to the external world alone, we can do without the help of the mind, with the help of the emotion. We can use our emotion, it is only to the external world, but not to the psychological world. We have to demarcate which is ours and which is others.
அவங்களோட அந்த ஆர்டிக்கிள் ஒன்று இருக்கு, 3 states. அது வேணா அவங்க PDF ஃபைல் அனுப்பிச்சேன்.
கடைசி
எல்லா கொஷனும் அது
So again, when the fear, for example, arises, it's helpful in external world to jump away from the snake, that's bad. At the same time, it's not disturbing me psychologically. It is correct.
Psychological disturbance is the fear. Fear is a psychological disturbance. With the help of the disturbance, he escaped from the snake.
Moment, but this is the effect on the external world. It's helpful for jumping out away from the snake. But internally, this fear in the same time is just movement. Does not bother me, isn't it?
So now we are also trying to jump away from the anger, jump away from the fear within ourselves. Physically, you may jump away from the snake. But don't psychologically jump within yourself. Don't jump yourself against the fear, against the anger. I want to be sit permanently upon peace of mind.
No, that is what I meant. Maybe not a clear translation. So, this is what I mean. So when this fear is there, when I feel this fear, psychologically it's not the problem. In the same time, I see it in external world, it's useful because I can jump away from the snake.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
When it is related to the external world, every emotions are meaningful.
Yes.
Otherwise it is meaningless.
And then
in itself it is meaningless.
Yeah.
If it is related to the external world, it is meaningful.
Yeah. So it is meaningless in just natural flow of it in internal world. It's liberation.
Yeah.
So, what are you saying about this flow of mind, not disturbing the flow of mind? Is it same for all the 7 billion plus people who are currently living in this world? And there are so many things that happen naturally. So my second part of the question is, so this thinking is also like heartbeat, like our blood moving in the body. So this thinking also like will become part of the nature then?
So it's a part of the nature, but here, is there any responsibility on our part? That is my question. But it is, growing is natural. Whether you struggle or not, whether you liberate or not, everything is going, everything is flowing. The only thing is whether during the course of flowing, you are trying to disturb. By disturbing alone is our fault. If you understand, you will not entertain the disturbance. We will allow the flowing. We do not take any stand to shape the flowing. The flowing is natural.
Is this the same for all the people who are living in this world now, and also for all the people who have lived from maybe from the time of Buddha till now? Is this how the mind functions, and for everybody in the whole world?
So the understanding operates the whole. The understanding takes the whole. So if you understand you have no work, then you will submit to the natural flow. Otherwise, you will try to shape the mind according to your convenience. Try to keep your mind in your peaceful position, rejecting some bad feeling. Then only there are many drugs, alcoholic. That means there is a struggle. Then only they keep themselves in a good state. Trying to keep themselves in a good state, they may use the alcoholic drugs and drinks, drugs. Many things is there. Otherwise, we will go for some meditation or many techniques, prayer, bhajans. Everything is to keep you some way or other. You do not allow you to be function in a natural way. So if you understand, you feel no work, you find no work, then you will not seek the help of this kind of things. You will be natural.
So when we understand this thing, then this is going to be the end of our spiritual search, and we will be like smart, responsible, good person in the outside world, and like an innocent child in the inside world, like in the psychological world.
So psychologically you must be innocent, like an innocent child. But in the external world alone, you must be intellectual. Psychologically, you must be innocent. You should not be intellectual. You should put down the intellectual thing. You have to put down the intellectual aspect. You have to be natural, you have to be innocent. Everything is one.
Everything is one.
Psychologically.
That's a new concept you're thinking.
But on the physical world, we need to behave. We still need to be good as we can. Yeah.
Psychologically, no good, no bad. If you try to, if you classify something is good, something is bad, then naturally the natural tendency will be to free from the bad and retain the good. So we have to take everything as good, everything as right. So then only everything is Brahman, everything is done by God. So all these things are related to the psychological world, not to the physical world.
So still some part of us decides on the physical what is good and bad. How is it good to behave like this, or how is it bad to behave like this? So the impulse of good and bad would come naturally, like in a natural flow, like coming from the part you know, you have this inner knowing of what is good and bad, because you cannot discriminate it in your mind. If nothing is good, nothing is bad.
So with the help of the mind alone, we can discriminate. But yes. The good means, good is related to the society, bad may be related to the situation, society, and related to the situation. According in the given situation, what is good or bad. So it is only related to the external world, not to myself, not to any mind. So, but the mind alone we can grasp, we can understand, we can estimate. But with the help of the mind we can estimate, but the good or bad is related to the external world.
Where do we draw the line of demarcation between the internal and external world?
So external means all our deeds, but psychological world is our reactions, reaction to the situation. Our reactions may be good, bad, psychologically we may fear, we may have some fear, anger, we may think, oh, I have to be separate myself. Because this is of the reaction. When I but the external situation is not a reaction. External situation is an actual thing, actual situation. So here we have to respond to the situation. To how to respond to the situation, we have to have some response. According to the response alone, we can react to the situation. We can respond to the situation. So here, as a response, we have some reaction within our mind. So all reactions within our mind is the psychological world. But here we should not expect a good reaction alone. Some bad reaction may be there, some peaceful reaction, some good sensation, everything may be there. But situation means only related to the physical world. It will only to the situation.
What do you think about what some people call the law of attraction, which says that according to what our thoughts or feelings are, what energetic vibration that we are emitting, somehow that's being reflected in our experiences in the external world, and we may attract experiences to us, good or bad, according to our internal reality.
So some vibration may be there within yourself. So all reactions are psychological, all relations are internal. But the external situation, the external thing may cause the reaction, cause the vibration. But here, you need not worry about, need not separate the vibration, you need not, if this is a good vibration, I have to keep the vibration forever. That's not the case. We have to, whatever comes, let it come, let it go, we have no work. We should not find any work within ourselves, let it be natural. But at the same time, if the situation is good in all respect, to all persons, to all the humanity of the society, we can give importance to the situation. Otherwise, we may remove the situation to the possible extent.
Excuse me. So, with the example with the child, so I have an anger reaction inside because he broke that thing, but in acting out, I console him. So, this is a discrepancy. Doesn't this mean that I suppress the anger?
So here, when you do not take any anger in your hand, the anger has gone away from you. Some new response, another response related to the situation comes. You are not suppressing. So in the other day also I have given some other analogy. For example, you are working under a superior officer in a company, and the superior officer done a wrong. And he blame you as if you have committed the wrong. And immediately you flare up. You have the anger to do something against your superior officer. So you take the anger in your hand. But even though you take the anger in your hand, you cannot express upon your superior officer. If you express upon your superior officer, you have to lose your job. So you suppress, then only you suppress the anger. So whenever you take the anger in your hand, then only you have to suppress. But in the case of your son, you have to take the anger and express the anger upon your son. But in the case of your relative child, you have not taken the anger in your hand. So as you have not taken the anger, it has gone away. There is nothing to suppress. But whenever you have taken the anger in your hand in the case of your superior officer, then only you have to suppress. If you express, it will create some problem. So you manually suppress. So suppression comes when you take the anger in your hand. But in the second instance, you do not take the anger in your hand, so it goes away without taking it.
Yeah. Understanding one Buddha, Jesus, G.K. Ramanamurti, mentalism, yeah, understanding.
So everybody, when we understand, when everything is liberated, There is no difference between Buddha and yourself.
Jesus,
Everybody is
GK,
one.
Ramana Shishyan.
Everybody.
Yeah. Whole history first.
I'm not sure I understand well what it is to take your anger in your hand. Does it mean, because obviously, even if you can express your anger onto your son because on your boss, okay, you don't do it because you lose your job, so you don't do it, hopefully. And it's just because you can do it on your son, it's not good to do it. How do you deal with anger? If you are angry, it shouldn't be the matter of boss or son. What do you do to not being bad? What does it mean to take anger in your hands? Doing something with it or not doing something with it?
So here, when you see the problem, instead of taking the anger in your hand, if you observe the situation in its sense, the other day also I used the analogy of a dog. So in the first instance it got the fear, but it did not take the anger. If they take the fear in the hand, if they take the fear, then naturally it will run. If you run away from the situation, the other dogs will spring upon the dog. So here what did the dog have do is that he did not take the fear in the hand, but at the same time the situation is there. We have to face the situation. So some new energy, new emotion comes instead of the fear. So you can make use of the new kind of emotion. So sometimes the anger may be correct to meet in the situation. If the anger is unsuitable to the situation, if you do not take the anger in your hand, some new kind of energy will come.
Sometimes anger is suitable to a situation?
You can make use of the anger. You can make use of the anger. Then only you can separate the situation. So, if the external world is concerned, you can make use of the anger, but it must have some meaning. See, it must follow some discipline. It should not be in a hasty way. You should not do it. It must have some meaning. It must have some rules of regulation. Then you can apply even the external.
Yeah, you need to change something. Like
Yeah.
if your son breaks something, you get angry, but you don't beat him. So you wait, you do something in yourself, I don't know, you breathe or whatever, and then you can maybe express your anger, but not in a brutal way.
Now, instead of beating the person, you can use the anger in a different way.
Yeah.
You can warn him, or you can teach him. Anyway, you can make use of the anger. The help of the anger alone, you can do something to correct the situation.
Does that, what you just said, does that not imply a discrimination process? Sometimes it's appropriate to express anger, sometimes don't take it in. Does that not imply discrimination in selecting or not selecting?
So here, in the external world is concerned, each and every situation is unique. And you have to apply the correct situation, you have to understand the situation, you have to understand your capacity, and everything you can have a correct strategy. Anyway, you have to settle the situation in a perfect way, you have to be successful in the situation. But in the psychological world, you will not be successful to control everything in an order. You have no make anything, you did not create any order within yourself. You have no responsibility to create an order within yourself. But as the external world is concerned, we are having some responsibility to create some order in the situation or in the society or in the family or anything. For that, we can find out some new strategy, new idea, how to tackle the situation. So each and every situation is unique. Your situation will be something, my situation will be something, but you have to plan for yourself. You need not wait for the other person to how to behave in the situation. Each and everything you have to behave. You have to find out your own situation, your own remedy, own strategy. But anything, there it must be honest. Your approach must be honest. You should not be any dishonest intention. With honest intention, you have to approach the situation. You may make your own strategy to tackle the situation.
By honest, you mean with good intention or what?
With good intention. Good intention. We should not exploit others. It must be good for yourself and others. It's a common good. There must be common good.
So, let me tell me if I am wrong. In fact, we never reach liberation. Liberation is ever
It's natural.
Huh?
It is natural, already is there.
Yeah. And this liberation, learning every time, also maybe go to a point that finally we find that there is nobody to care about what's happening in psychological work.
But you need not try, always keep your watch whether somebody is there or not.
Yeah.
You need not, but we have no work, and you need not watch whether everything is okay. We have no work.
Okay.
Even the watching everything is okay, you need not verify it.
It could happen.
Yeah, everything must be natural. Everything must be unconscious. For that, you have to understand. No work psychology.
Okay.
For that, the matter is over. Otherwise, when we find some work, naturally we will have the tendency to do so.
Sure. But we can say that liberation is a constant work that give us in the course of time, more lightness. We get more light.
So here, but if you expect the lightness or heavy, we need not worry about that. Let it be heavy, let it be light.
Okay.
It is one way. We have no concern. The understanding, we have to stick upon the understanding alone. And in course of time, everything will be okay. But you will taste the liberation itself. The liberated mind itself, it will know. You will taste it. You can understand the liberation is functioning, thereby everything is in the flowing state. Because previously you may struggle with the certain things, you will keep something in a vicious circle, it will be struggling in a long time. But when you put everything in the natural flow, you will feel everything is in the flow. All your anger, all your sorrow, all your fear, you feel everything is in the flow. And
So this is the way
you will find, you will recognize.
This is the way you know that your mind is liberated, you feel that everything is in the flow.
Then you can confirm. Thereby you can confirm,
Yes.
so everything is working properly.
Yes.
And there is a maturing. You are during the years. You feel that this kind of the understanding itself is maturing, or the liberation. Or how you call
So once we got the understanding, it is in the flow. Everything is in the flow. So our work is only the external world. Psychologically, no work.
But the impact of understanding on the outer world, it will
it
mature
may be there.
somehow.
The impact of on the outer world also may be there, because whenever you are a child, become a child, the other person will know you are childish. Everything will be there.
And then you mentioned yesterday, if I got this right, I'm not sure, that you got totally, your mind got totally liberated 10 years ago or so, because you were not holding on to this consciousness or whatever. So what happened for you in 10 years? Is it always the same, or things are unfolding in your consciousness?
So there is no like unfolding of consciousness. No, the flowing alone must be there. There is no unfolding of consciousness means thereby we are using some other expectation out of liberation. Don't expect anything more than liberation. Liberation is the highest state. Expecting something beyond liberation, in the name of liberation, some other different unfolding of consciousness. That is the language of yoga. In the yoga itself, there are many levels, many stages. This kind of attainment, this kind of attainment, that kind of attainment. All levels are in the yoga process. There are step 1, step 2, they may number many things. But here, the only one thing, there is no number, there is no first, second, second. Either liberation or no liberation. That level is there.
Okay, so but when there is, we don't expect anything, hopefully. So now God expresses itself freely through you, through your form. So is there something else happening? Since you don't resist, you have no expectation, you don't resist anything, so God may use you well, to do these talks, for instance.
So here, what I do externally will have the reaction within me. So if I do something, they also tell when I type something in the computer, the typing itself creates some meditation on its own, and it creates some bliss consciousness. But I am not developing anything on my own. It creates naturally. It comes some as a response. I have the feeling and emotion, but I do not catch hold of anything. When I do not catch hold of anything, whatever comes, good emotion, bad emotion, even bliss consciousness, everything in the flow. I am not keeping anything. So there is nobody here to keep on anything. So when we understand no work is there, the me become powerless to keep on anything, regulate ourselves within ourselves. The me is responsible, me is something to deal with the external world and all, not with the psychological world. Psychologically, it must be natural. The natural world around is growing, not expecting anything. Whatever comes naturally, let it be natural.
So you are exactly the same? There is no change between you today and you 10 years ago?
So each and every time, new situation, we are facing the new situation. The new response will be there. But whatever the response is flowing. So the change, the difference is only in the situation, not within myself. Psychologically, everything is one. The situation may be different. According to the different situation, different emotion may come. But there is no, we do not expect some change within myself. The change is only in the situation, not within myself. All changes are related to this situation, not myself. Myself means flowing along is the only thing. The content may be good thing or bad thing. All contents are in this flowing way. Previously, everything is in the static state, and it will having some vicious circle. It creates some eddy or anything, creating a struggling mind. Now, no struggling mind, liberating mind alone is there. In the liberated mind, the flow alone is there, flowing alone is there. What may be the content that is going on.
When you took the decision to become a teacher, to go these teachings and write these books, is this a conscious decision?
All these are external work, they are not psychological work.
So you took the decision, I do this now.
So this is a physical responsibility, not the psychological responsibility. Psychologically, I have some psychological emotion, feeling, anything. I don't try to get away from anything, keep away anything. That is psychologically free. Physically, I have to do something, taking some responsibility to write some books, something. That is different. Physically, you have to be always responsible with some work. Psychologically, you should not have any work. You have to be natural.
I have one more question. So now you are stressing about this ending of spiritual search by not fighting with ourselves. Is all the mysticism and the tantric practices, are the whole purpose is more like entertainment? Don't they have any spiritual purpose?
So if you go on and ask the tantric person, they will say, I am doing all those things to get the enlightenment liberation. But that is not the way. To want to get the enlightenment, they have to be natural. Doing any practice, all tantric way, create some energy field, and it may be mystical energy or some extrasensory perception or some bliss consciousness. So all these are tantric ways and Kriya Yoga, everything. But for beginners, they may do anything as they like. But afterwards, you have to come to a conclusion and we have to finish everything. But it is a natural state where no work is necessary. All work is, if you do any work, you will have the result. But here, We are not working anything for any result. We go along with ourselves. Everything, the me also is flowing, the emotions are also flowing, everything is flowing. There is nothing to retain within the psychological world to separate anything. The external world is concerned, our mind is there in the form of me or anything, in the form of emotion or me, anything, but it may be related to the external world. But if they related to the psychological world, everything is one. I am not establishing any subject to deal with the other thing.
I just have a couple of announcements to make. If IA is publishing a new English magazine every month.